So you need one thing you can do, one slap bass exercise that fixes bad tone, worse accuracy, worser speed, and gives you something to play in the music store that isn't a Chili Peppers riff. An exercise simple enough for beginners to master, but flexible enough for advanced level ups, that'll help you progress every single day with just 10 minutes of practice. An exercise like this. This exercise has been tried, tested, and approved by my students on the BassBuzz forum. Here are their day one struggles. At the end of the video, we'll see how they did after 14 days. But before you jump ahead to the advanced level, you need to nail the first 4 levels, from noob to intermediate. I know it's tempting to just dive right in and play the coolest sounding slap riffs you can find. But if you do that before you get your slap fundamentals down, you'll sound super sketchy. Because if you want to be a legit slap bassist, first you need good, clean slaps. Level 1 is a stripped down version of the exercise you just heard, with only the essential slaps. It might seem super basic, but even intermediate players will make mistakes here. Because to nail level 1, there are 4 ingredients you need to master. Ingredient 1 is elementary, but if you don't nail it, you'll sound like this. So can you guess what it is? It's nailing accuracy, meaning hitting the string you're actually aiming for and not the strings that you're not. Actually moving the thumb between the E and the A strings without missing is the first big challenge of this exercise. Whether you're using thumb up or thumb down technique, you need to maintain the same thumb angle to the string as you move from E to A. So that's the accuracy piece, but if you only focus on the slap hand, it's still gonna sound rumbly like this. Which means it's time to get the next ingredient into the picture to make this sound clean, because ingredient 2 is muting, silencing the strings that you don't want ringing so that there's not a bunch of horrible noise. And this is such a huge deal. Imagine a singer who just yelled gibberish in between all their lyrics, or a drummer who accidentally hit the wrong drums all the time. That's basically what you're doing if you let your strings rumble when slapping. So how do you fix your muting? You cover the strings you aren't playing to keep them from vibrating against your wishes, and just use any meat on your fretting hand that makes sense to you. When you're slapping the A string, you can cover the D and G strings with maybe your ring and pinky, and you can even reach over and cover the E with your index or middle finger. And then when you're slapping the E string, you can cover A, D, and G with whatever fingers you want. Maybe lay your pinky across all of them, or just whatever's comfortable. You just have to get some meat on there so that they don't make noise. But you need to nail the next ingredient to get fully tight sounding slap that sounds like bow, 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 instead of So ingredient 3 is watching your note length, how long a note actually rings before you mute it. And not only is note length crucial for tight sounding slaps, it's also important in every other style of music. And while it's kind of easy to miss because note length mistakes don't pop out the same way as if you play the wrong note or the wrong rhythm, missing this is a surefire way to sound like amateur hour karaoke bass. So when it's time for a note to end, that string needs to get covered up too. So besides the muting you're doing on the other strings, you gotta go slap, mute, slap, slap, mute, just by touching with any finger on the fretting hand. Slap, mute, slap, 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 then same thing. Slap, mute, slap, slap, mute, slap, mute, slap, slap, slap. Muting and nailing note length while slapping is challenging to master, which is why it's important to dial it in with simple, repetitive exercises like this one before attempting Herculean feats of Les Claypoolery. Especially because you still need to nail ingredient number 4, rhythm. Because playing the right notes at the wrong time is just noise, and slapping the right notes at the wrong time is even worse because it's so percussive. Ow. Yes, Josh, we all know good rhythm is important. Thank you so much. But how do you actually improve? Well, it takes tons of practice to master. Sorry. But there's an easy trick to see an instant improvement. And that trick, actually listen to the drums. Amateur slappers get so lost in their slapping, they just forget there's anyone else there. But if you key into the drums, especially the kick drum, then you have an actual grid to check your timing against. And with accuracy, muting, note length, and rhythm all on your side, you can have level 1 sounding solid like this. But to get your friends to take you seriously as a slap bassist, you're gonna need to add some pops to your slaps. And if you pop like this, you can easily slide back to slap wannabe status. Do you see what's going wrong here? The slaps and pops are technically happening, but there's a ton of wasted motion that'll keep you from getting any speed. So you need to nail level 2, the teeter-totter pop technique. This technique is the secret to making slap and pop actually work. Whether you slap thumb up, thumb down, you do the bounce slap, strike through, you must teeter-totter or else you're a teeter-notter. So what is the teeter-totter? Well, here's what it's not. I rotate down to slap, bounce all the way back up with the forearm, come back down, grab the pop, and come all the way back up. So that's down, up, just to get slap pop. And there's just no way in hell to play fast like that. Allow me to demonstrate. That's not fast compared to that. So if you want to go fast, you need the teeter-totter, which means you slap, and then without twisting the forearm back up, you just get the thumb off the string, whether you do the bouncy thing that I do or you do the strike through the string thing. And then you get your pop finger under the string and twist back up with the forearm. So it's one cycle of down and up to get a slap and a pop, and that allows you to get fast over time. And if your hand gets tired from all that focusing, you can give it a break by moving it over onto your mouse, move your cursor over to the subscribe button, and yeah. So level 2 has some added pops to test your teeter-totter. And all the specific slap and pop fingerings are written out for you in the free PDF you can grab in the description. But you're gonna slap, mute, slap, slap, pop, slap, mute, slap, slap, pop, and that's where you really need to watch your teeter-totter. And then same thing in the second half. And you're gonna watch your accuracy too, moving the popping finger from the G string to the D string, which is a little bit harder to pop because you gotta tuck it in there. So remembering to listen to the drums for rhythm, put that all together, and it sounds like. But here's the problem. Basic slaps and pops might impress your friends, but we still have to contend with this guy. And that's why you need the slick moves in levels 3 and 4 to spice things up. Can you spot the move we've been missing? So what are they doing? They've mastered the technique in level 3, ghost notes. Ghost notes are just muted slaps and pops where the fretting hand covers the strings without fretting a specific note, so you get a percussive thwackety sound. Ghost notes add some subtlety and sexiness to your slap lines, like you're just too sexy and subtle to shout every note out the same way. Ooh. So in level 3, you can practice some simple ghost notes with the muted slaps marked as X in the sheet music and tab. You slap how you normally would, but you cover the string without properly fretting so you don't get an actual note. Basically, it's how your slaps sounded before you got your technique together, but this time it's on purpose. And you can hear how this adds more slick nuance and texture to the exercise. Not only does this add legitness to your lines, it's also a tasty trick to help you stay in rhythm. And as we all know, slapping with bad rhythm is a crime and you will go to jail. Have you ever noticed it's easier to stay in time with a metronome that clicks frequently versus one that has big gaps in between the clicks? Well, it's kind of the same with slapping. If you're keeping a semi-regular rhythm with your thumb, it can help lock you in with the band more. This isn't something you should always do, since sometimes you need to leave those gaps for musical reasons. But even the pros will often organize their slap lines so the thumb can keep bouncing along, keeping time. Check out Marcus Miller, one of the ancient Greek gods of slap. If you focus on his thumb, you can see it's bouncing on almost all of the eighth notes in the bar. Obviously, Marcus is a master and doesn't need a crutch to play with good rhythm, but I can tell you from my 20 years experience slapping to bass, playing lines with the thumb ghosting away like this just feels good. Ghost notes help sexy up this exercise, but we've still got a problem. So far, every technique we've talked about for slap relies on the same hand for slapping, popping, and ghost notes. But the most impressive slappers don't rely on the slap hand alone. See if you can spot the missing technique. You see it? They found clever ways to add the fretting hand in to complement the slap hand. There's a whole arsenal of techniques you can use here. Hammer-ons, pull-offs, left-hand slaps. In level 4, we'll focus on the best starting point, hammer-ons. Hammer-on just means playing a note without plucking or slapping it by striking the string with your fretting hand. It's just like fretting, but way more forceful. You can do this from a standing start on any note, just like boop, 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 boop. But usually in slap lines, you'll hammer a note after a slap or a pop. Like maybe you'd slap the 3rd fret note and then hammer the 5th fret note. Or pop the 3rd fret note, hammer the 5th fret note. So how do you actually use hammer-ons in a slap line? Well, there's a really easy rule that exactly 92.3% of hammer-ons follow. You just start 2 frets below your target note, slap or pop, and then hammer on to where you're trying to get to. Like, let's say you're slap popping some D octaves, and you want to make it a little more juicy. Instead of going straight to that octave, you can pop a note 2 frets below, then hammer on the octave, your target note, by smacking the string. And it sounds cooler. Yay! And this 2-fret rule almost always works, no scales required. But if you do know the relevant scale, you just start 1 scale note below, and then bask maniacally in the glory of your superior theoretical knowledge. If you don't have the theory chops to bask maniacally and know the right scale, maybe it's time to take my Beginner to Badass course, where I'll cover all this essential theory in a way you can actually understand. Plus everything else you're working in this exercise, including muting, accuracy, and basic slap technique. So to work hammer-ons into your exercise, we're replacing these octave pops with a pop 2 frets below and then a hammer to the target note. So like in bar 1, you go slap, ghost, slap, slap, pop, hammer, and then same thing in bar 3. And then there's a bonus hammer-on in bar 4. You're gonna slap, ghost, slap, hammer. And remember, there's a free PDF in the description with all these fingerings detailed out. And now with ghost notes and hammer-ons, you've got a much sexier sounding slap line. But there's a risk when adding hammer-ons of your rhythm falling apart. So why do hammer-ons make your rhythm more risky? Well, normally your plucking and slapping hand is in charge of applying rhythm to the bass. But with hammer-ons, your fretting hand is now in charge of rhythm, which may not be as precise if you're new to hammer-ons. You could easily find yourself rushing, like hammering the notes before it's time for them to actually hit. This is a super common issue, and the trick is to practice slow enough that you can be really precise with timing. But slaps, pops, ghosts, and hammers don't guarantee you're gonna actually make music. And if you wanna slap in real life, that's kind of important, which is why you need to master level 5. Because when you're first learning slap, going like this is just like the most exciting shit in the world. I remember when I first started slapping, I just couldn't get enough. But eventually it just starts to feel kind of square. So why don't disco octaves cut it all the time? Well, at some point your ear just starts craving some melody. And this, it just doesn't track as a melody. But why not? Because our sense of what a melody is has a lot to do with the human voice. And as you know from having a human voice, we tend to talk in a pretty small range of notes. We don't randomly jump high and low. So when music jumps a lot, we hear it as less melodic. And hey, that's exactly what disco octaves sound like. Luckily, there's a simple fix to get more melodic slap lines, and it's just to sprinkle in some close together, non-jumpy notes. Just a little bit goes a long way to tell the listener, hey, there's some melody happening here. Don't stop listening. So this exercise already has a couple examples of close together notes that make it sound more melodic. We've got the hammer-ons we added on. Those are nice and close. And then at the end of bar 2, da 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 da. Even though we added the octave pops, that slap movement is still nice and close together. Da 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 da. Somebody could sing that in a stadium, you know? And then in bar 4, we're adding an even bigger fill, which might look jumpy on paper, but if you just follow the slapped notes with your ear, ba, da, 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 again, it's nice, tight, singable notes. And after 2 weeks of practice, let's see how our pals on the BassBuzz forum did with this exercise.
Slap bass now. How did you learn?
Well, Neville, thanks for asking. There were 10 key songs that taught me how to play slap bass. Just click here to watch the next video.
Click where?
The thing.